Amazing. All right. Well, welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Create Her Fest today. As usual, this is going to be a very safe and intentional space for women and allies to discover, design, and deliver with emerging technologies. My name is Darlise. So just quick intro, serial technologist, but co-founder of Create Her Fest. So I'll be your host today. But also I have my co-founder, Adrienne, in the chat. And so if any issues pop up and if you have questions, if you're like, wait, what was that link or anything like that, feel free to let either of us know in the chat. Be sure to navigate that and help that or help you with that. So definitely use the chat to introduce yourself, your name, your location, if you're excited to be here. And honestly, like, give me some hearts, give me some confetti if you're really excited to be here today. I'm excited. I really think it's going to be a really great conversation, and really excited to introduce who our speaker is going to be today. Quick notes on just how to navigate this space. Obviously, you all know how to use the reactions. You all know how to use the chat. But if you are logging on from your phone or even logging on from your computer, I don't know why I said even. I don't know which one is the default there, but you should see down below, there'll be like a sort of grid icon that says meeting tools. Since this is a Q&A, and I know we asked for questions when you were registering, but if you have other questions that pop up, if you click on meeting tools down below, you'll see Q&A as an option as a meeting tool. And so as questions pop up while we're having this conversation today, feel free to question in the chat. We'll have like a brief presentation and then we'll go into like the Q&A. We'll go over the questions that you all asked during registration. And then, as time goes on, we'll go over questions that pop up during or, in your Q&A section as well. So that's just a little bit of something. Lastly, if you're not registered for 75 Her, if you're joining, just because you're based off of the, general Create Her community, you found us on LinkedIn and you're like, wow, this is really cool. I really want to get involved. Highly recommend joining 75 Her. If you're not aware of what that is, 75 Her is a 75-day technical journey. So if you're familiar with 75 Hard, it's basically the same thing, but for tech skills. And so we are in our hackathon phase of that journey. And so if you're interested in competing, highly recommend. Adrienne dropped the link in the chat. We have up to $1,500 in prizes, along with a number of other non-cash prizes as well. So highly recommend. You don't have to build with a team. You can build solo. We do recommend building with a team because collaborative solutions, I feel like, are very cool, also beneficial for the community, but we didn't want to make it an additional barrier. So if you're just like, you know what, I have this idea, I think it'd be really cool to build on it, absolutely sign up to do so, and compete for prizes. You never know if you're going to win. Last year, our builders, the builders that won, were first-time hackers. So don't feel like you have to have been involved in hackathons for years and years or been an expert builder in these technologies to be able to compete and place with the prizes that we have. So I've been yapping a lot. I will let Yunny introduce herself, and we are going to go ahead and get started. Give me some claps to kind of like welcome Yunny to.
Yes. Thank you, Darlise, for all the setup, and thank you everyone for joining today on Sunday. You could have totally spent the time in different way, but thanks for giving your precious time and then sharing with us. I'm going to quickly share my screen first because I think I do have my intro over there as well. Let me know if you can guys see my screen though. Let me play this. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I think the problem with this old full Zoom is I cannot see you all. So if there's any hands up or anything that I need to pause, just let me know. Then I will definitely go back and change the windows and everything. So yeah, again, thank you everyone for joining. Today, I was kind of thinking a lot about what I want to share, but I think the best way to make our conversation or your time the most valuable is just to have an honest conversation. So I thought that, hey, let's have just honest conversation with a software engineer, which is my role, and who is like navigating her software engineer life in the AI era. So my name is Yunny. I'm currently a senior software engineer in Microsoft. I'm specifically working on Microsoft Teams as my product. So just to start, I'm not the AI expert that you might expect. Hopefully nobody had an expectation that I'll be the AI expert. But so I've been in a software engineering world a little bit longer than many of you maybe. I've been in Microsoft 8+ years. I started my career as a software engineer in Windows, and later on I changed the teams to Teams right before pandemic. So I went through the very fun, chaotic, a lot of exciting journey for the past several years. And then actually, I'm going to start my role in a new team tomorrow called Copilot Platform. I think they're kind of a similar stage where Teams was a few years ago. A lot of exciting and very fast-paced things happening there. So I'm going to start the new journey starting tomorrow. Hopefully it goes well. And I also haven't figured anything out. I feel the same confusion, excitement, and nervousness as many of you probably going through in this very fast-changing world. And as a personal note, I've always been interested and very curious about how to learn well. When I was early in career, I was always amazed by certain senior or some engineers who learned really fast. So I really kind of try to learn about the concept of mental model, deliberate practice for several years. And I feel like that question is more alive now than ever. So I would like to briefly touch that on in the coming up slide as well. So that being said, I'm not an AI researcher. I'm just another human who has a scout mindset, just being curious and watching things to make sense of what's out there, trying to be open and exploring and noticing my friction to identify opportunities that I can apply the AI. And another thing I love to do is that I love to host conversation with people from different backgrounds. I think bi-weekly, they gather in my home, 6 or 7 people, and then we share, we co-work together and we share how we are using the AI tools, how they feel in general, just to share the sense of togetherness as well. And I love to learn in public and learn out loud. And another thing I want to highlight is that I used to think learning requires a lot of time and energy investment. So if I were my past version, I probably try to invest a lot of time in AI, to learn AI. But nowadays, I don't do that. I actually intentionally start light and then just focusing on one step per day. And then just see how things compound. This is actually what I learned from my mentors and a lot of engineers that I look up to, because they all have their life. I was always curious how they stay on top of this fast-facing technology and things. The answer is they don't, but they just focus on really one small thing they can do, even if it's 5 minutes per day. So I would like to share a little bit about how I'm adapting this in the coming up slides, but that's another thing that I wanna share with you guys. And one of the main questions I usually get a lot from my network, my mentees and everyone is that, how am I learning AI alongside a full-time job? It's a really good question, not just because AI is happening now. In general, any industry, any career, I think we all are a life learner, and there are a lot of things that we want to learn. So this has been a kind of a big challenge for me since I started my career. And nowadays, there are a few tips or a few frameworks that works for me. So I just want to share with you all. And this is absolutely not the answer. It's just one of the ways that I'm kind of managing my life while I'm having full-time job and my life and everything. And I hope this can be a little bit helpful and give you some inspiration. So starting with on the left pane, how I approach it. I wanted to capture the big mental framework that I have whenever I think about learning something alongside the full-time job. So first and foremost, I basically paying attention to now. When I say now, there are 2 aspects I'm paying attention to. One is to myself, and then the other is to industry. So when I say to myself, I just basically ask these questions during my journal or just every day when I'm just walking. I'm like, oh, what have I been doing? What friction am I experiencing every day, even if just small thing? And what is slowing me down from being the version of myself that I want to be? So for the last question, as some example, is that I always had a desire that I want to be the like code machine, for example. It was like, I'm not that type of person, unfortunately, but software engineer world is there's different ways of you can produce the impact. And there will have been people who engineer who code really fast, who make a lot of number of PRs. I always wanted to be, but that was not my strength. But now with this AI, the tools are available. I start to kind of doing the experiments like, oh, what if I can be that person who produced the good high quality of the code with the help of AI and then actually produce this number of PRs per week. So this kind of new goals that I didn't think about before, I'm like starting to kind of noticing that desire. And also it's important to pay attention to industry. I will talk about how much I pay attention to industry because nowadays we don't have a problem to access to the knowledge. I think the problem is there's so much information, but it's important not to isolate yourself from everyone. It is important to pay attention. So usually the question is, hey, what's going on out there? What problems people are trying out to solve right now? And kind of like I'm aware of the tools, like the names, like the puzzle pieces. I don't know in details, but I'm kind of like, oh, if I need that piece later on, maybe I can deep dive into it. Like that's the level of awareness, like trying to just pay attention to. After this pay attention to phase, sometimes I do move on to the brainstorming phase, which is like once I have like enough data, enough ingredients for me to brainstorm with, I'm like, okay, well, where can I use AI here? Like, how can I solve this problem? Can I solve it in a way that I want to explore and learn? Because there's always a particular topics I want to learn. And I'm like, okay, these are the things that has been going on in my life. This has been my interest. Is there a way that I can kind of learn this with the AI? So that brainstorming phase happened throughout the week as well. And then after that, during the weekend, mostly for me, because I have the most time after work, I just choose one thing that sounds really fun to me at that moment. After like 10 years of a struggle to figure out my learning method, having fun is really important from the sustainability perspective. So among the several options, several ideas, several problems I noticed during the week, during the weekend, I just choose one that feels most fun to me. And then I allocate 2 to 4 hours for tinker and explore all together. But these are like how I approach is more like a mental framework. The phase is like very fluid. So I do sometimes pay attention to, but if I tend to notice I'm just being in the more thinking and planning mode, I do definitely intentionally try to come to tinker and explore mode. But knowing where I am at currently, definitely in these 4 phases helps me a lot to kind of like being in a control of my learning phases. And then on the right side, a few ways I learned. This is more like the tactics that I want to share with you to stay aware in the industry polls. I think many of you already are probably doing it, but subscribing to a few newsletters. I do quick reads on LinkedIn instead of Twitter. I think many of my network and my mentors be on Twitter, but for me, somehow Twitter didn't stick with me. So I usually stay on the LinkedIn. And I do have a lot of conversation across backgrounds bi-weekly, probably on Saturday, 2 to 4 hours with the people. That's how I usually stay aware of it. And the second component is that probably it can be counterintuitive, but I do intentionally carve out the time to work on fundamentals. When I say working on fundamentals, it's the time for me to deliberately practice of thinking. What I mean by that is I do read a book of writing and solving system low-level design problems as a software engineer. This is a traditional engineer you may call, but with the even AI, my engineering group, we tend to find that the solving system low-level design problems, knowing how to write, knowing how to frame the question is becoming more important. And this type of not intangible skills is actually coming from when we deliberated practicing how to think more and think harder. So there is a time that I'm allocating for this. And then after that, I do have a tinkering time, which is just try out and explore things without any goals in mind. Here, when I'm tinkering things, I really do not have any expectation of me. I just say that, hey, you just sitting in front of computer, showing up, opening the new tool that you wanted to try, that's already win. And I just do this 3 exercises on I do daily basis, but I'm going to talk about how I'm sustainably doing it. But anyway, these are the 3 tactics that I always leverage to implement the framework that I just talked about on the left pane.
Hey, Yunny, I just realized I think we're still seeing the first screen, the first slide. Yeah.
Oh no, really? Give me 1 second. Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah. And now we're seeing like learning AI alongside a full-time job.
Maybe I'll just do it on here instead of doing it the full face so I can see you all.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry about that. So
no
this
worries.
was this was the second phase where I was going over about like who I am instead of like and then kind of identifying it, clarifying it that who I am not as well. And we'll share this presentation later as well. So don't worry about, and it's also getting recorded. So hopefully the information here, don't worry about that missing it out. And yeah, this is the kind of the framework that I was talking about. I'm paying attention to now. And then I do have a brainstorm phase and choose one thing that sounds really fun to me, and then just tinker and explore. And then this was the pane that I was describing about the tactics that I'm leveraging, like a newsletter, working on the fundamentals, and tinkering. And the next slide that I wanted to go about is more specific examples about how I am, like how does actually day-to-day look like? Because I think there was some questions from the register, from the pre-register questions I saw about my day. So I want to kind of share about the personal learning that I'm doing and then learn on the job, because those are the two two different contexts. So as a full-time person, what I'm doing at job is also very interesting, but sometimes job is more optimized for output. So you kind of like tend to focus on urgent things, but there are certain things that are important to you, but not necessarily urgent because it's just a promise to yourself. So for me, kind of carving out that time has been the most challenging with all the things going on in life. So the first thing that I make sure, or I had to do, was I have to acknowledge and accept my physical energy pattern, no matter I like it or not. I try to be a morning person. I try to be a night owl. I kind of experiment here and there, but I realized that I am relatively morning person, but not the 5 a.m., 4:30 a.m. person. I think 7 a.m. is the earliest that I feel my body is very happy to wake up. And then after that, the 30 minutes of like physical self-care and then space care. What I mean by space is my New York apartment, just things need to be very organized and clean. So it feels like it's basically decluttering. That's what I do. It's kind of like ritual before I do my personal learning. And then after that, I do 15 minutes of morning pages, 15 minutes of reading. And then I spend 30 to 45 minutes of personal AI engineering tinkering. And then after that, like 10 to 15 minutes, I intentionally, this is something, sometimes I may skip engineering tinkering, but this one of like fundamentals, I don't skip at all every day. This is where I actually ironically learn about system design, low-level design, interview materials, which I will also talk about, because I found that all the industry, big tech for sure, and the startup that I was actually having conversation and then learning about their interview process, they are the traditional way of software engineering interview hadn't been changed. Because this is still good lagging indicator, good medium to evaluate how people think and how we discuss things. So this is something that I spend time for sure. But what I realize, even if I don't do, like, these old things are still good to have. The number one thing that helps me a lot to sustain this learning and then the excitement, the passion of just keep doing something every day is because I respect my human needs religiously, quite honest. Workout, eating healthy, which means I need to carve out time for meal prep, because eating out can be so expensive in New York City, sleeping enough, and cultivating good relationship with the people and community. All this thing, even though I'm not learning AI, it has been extremely valuable for me to keep showing up every day, to do these little things every day. I think the engineers that I admire within Microsoft, and also because my husband works at Google and also the engineers at Google, they are kind of similar bucket where they respect the human needs more in this AI era so that they can work well with the AI. So that's one thing I want to show as an example of how I'm living my life for my personal learning. At work, because I did see some questions about how the day-to-day looks like in the job. Of course, this is biased towards Microsoft, and within Microsoft, biased towards the Teams product. As I mentioned briefly, I'm a product engineer. I'm in the back-end side, but I consider myself as a product engineer. And then generally in Teams organization, when we are shipping a feature or when we are releasing a feature, there are 4 main phases that we always go through. So first step is define the problem or define what to build. And second phase is like scoping out, like how we are going to build this. And third is execution, fourth is shipping. After shipping, there are a bunch of other processes that happens. But usually these are the 4 phases that every engineer works with the PM and engineering leadership as well. I think in the beginning of AI, a lot of people, including me, noticed that AI can be really well leveraged for the execution aspect, meaning that writing the business logic, test, telemetry, which is kind of the metrics that we write. And there is also feature rollout, meaning that we are rolling out the feature gradually so we don't bomb the whole world with the wrong quality. So those things, AI has been very, very helpful. Nowadays, also as senior engineer, you do spend more time on the define and scope. You actually do not spend much time on the execution. So as a senior engineer or a senior plus people, we were kind of thinking about how can we integrate AI for these loops as well. Within Microsoft, a lot of engineers use different tools, but also we have a company-wide constraint because of the data issue. So for example, we can use IDE for Visual Studio Code and Visual Studio. Other IDEs, unless Microsoft make the official strategic partnership, we are not allowed to use it. That's the IDE tool level, but model-wise, we have access to both OpenAI and then Claude, Anthropic models. Right now, I think starting January, Microsoft make the official partnership with the Anthropic. So we have a enterprise level access to the Claude AI, Claude Code. So I think a lot of people use Claude Code nowadays as well, but in general, the tools, I tend to find there's no much difference between the industry that people are using and Microsoft. I think I will say Microsoft or Google, they have to have a more limitation because we want to make sure that we don't share the data outside without the, going official processes. But here, like in my job, I do kind of, whenever I do need to define the product or kind of figure out the architecture level, we brainstorm a lot with the AI, as well as a lot of people spend a lot of time for the context engineering, because at the end of the day, all the context is specific to the product. So also I, and then tech lead and my engineers usually, I think in December especially, we spend a lot of time about understanding what is a good practices about the context engineering. But now as model gets better, it's less required to do the context engineering, but still we are at the kind of like the phase of like learning about context engineering and then seeing what's possible in the model on every daily basis. And I think just to wrap up my presentation, I think I was really grateful that many of you show up with the real questions. I will not for sure not have all the answers, but I will have some perspectives that I kind of currently have based on what I know so far, and it will absolutely change. So definitely would love to share my perspective on this question, but also I want to encourage you all to share your perspectives because your experience is unique and everyone right now is just observing and learning together. So there's no right or wrong answer. So any of your inputs will be very valuable to today's presentation as well. And last but not least, in summary, these are the 4 things that I know so far. One is that it is absolutely true that AI is changing how software gets built. But I will say in existing companies, the work is mainly right now understanding the existing processes, then finding where AI genuinely fits. We call AI adoption, right? And then after that, once this becomes clear, we are driving towards a process for AI native. I do know other companies who started recently, they are AI native companies, meaning their process already built in considering the AI. But at least for existing big companies, we've been working without having AI at this level. So there are a lot of other gaps that we need humans to think through, and then kind of like figure out how to make it more efficient. So that's been what was going on in my world. And second is that the engineers that I admire don't use every tool actually in the market. Because it's impossible, quite honest. So they pick a few and they go deep. When I say they go deep, they just work one project for a month with that tool only, and then understand what's possible and what it costs. And then they bring that insight to the team, and then we kind of brainstorm whether we can use the same tools in our current project as well. And number three is that nobody has answers yet, only observations, as I mentioned. This becoming more evident as I talk to more people. So that means the future hasn't been written yet. Even if some scenarios seem more likely, it does not necessarily mean that will be the reality for you and for me, because everyone has a different need and unique situation. So I was, as a person who've been very in a sad moment last year, because I thought already it seems like the ending was pretty clear. This helped me a lot to kind of have a self-motivation, self-energy to start something for myself. Because there's a certain society that I want to live in where everyone's pace is respected, that everyone feels included, even if this AI is coming at us. I want to just spend my day every day believing that is possible and then contributing it instead of feeling sad. So this is something that I try to remind myself every day. And number four, last but not least, I am noticing that everyone is, whenever we work with AI, everyone is realizing that intentionality is the most important thing right now. When a human wants to have a clear intention, it means the human needs to clearly understand the problem they're trying to solve before they reach out for any tool. And this understanding problems comes from really deep thinking and empathy around you, to you and around yourself. So it's a very intangible thing, but at the same time, I feel like it is requiring me to be more human. Quite honest, I'm paying attention what human is feeling so that I can articulate with the human language, and then can actually ask help to people and ask help to AI as well. So these has been the four trends that I've been noticing. It may change, but so far this seems to be quite coherent across the board that I've talked to. And then I will just pause here after this. Again, let's talk. I am here to learn from you as well. This is my LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me. I'll be happy to hear what you're going through, what you're working on, just some struggles here and there or challenges. I would love to learn, because everything right now is all the valuable insights for everyone. But yeah, I think this is hopefully this presentation captures like who I am or what I'm thinking, where I'm at. But after this, this is just for ingredients for you to kind of like start to think about questions that you want to ask during this time. But other than that, please, reach out to me and let me know anything that I can help with. And from now on, I would love to open up the table to you all to hear your voices.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Yunny. We do have one initial question. And, right before I ask this, I do want to let people know, especially for anyone who hopped in before I gave the little spiel about, where to ask questions. If you are on your phone or logging in from your laptop, if you look down below, there'll be a little like grid icon next to the chat icon, and it says meeting tools. If you click on that, you'll be able to ask a question in the Q&A. And so one of the questions that we do have in the Q&A, and you can also drop it in the chat, anyone, if you're like, I don't really know how to navigate this, that's fine. Like, I have no problem navigating that. And also, if you want to come off of mic, like if you want to raise your hand and ask your question out loud, that's 100% okay too. So first question is from Dawn, and she said, you mentioned learning well and learning out loud. What do you consider as learning out loud? Documentation, PRs, collaborative work?
That's a really good question. Thanks for the question. For me, when I say learning out, I think personal documentation for sure. For me, I'm thinking about learning in public. So in a way, me preparing this presentation was learning out loud. And also I do write on LinkedIn just to capture what I've been thinking through and then see who reach out to me and then trying to have that conversation. So anything that allows me to keep my knowledge and insights outside of myself, I consider as a learning learning out loud. And I think the other question was, I think there was before the learning out loud, there was another parts of it that she wanted to clarify, but I forgot. Was it about?
Go back. What do you consider learning out loud? Like in terms of like documentation, PRs, or collaborative work? So
Yeah, I will say that's absolutely true. And then for me, it's about the public writing, public speaking, anything that the community where I can share my whatever I'm learning, I consider as a learning out loud.
That's a great question, and that's a great answer. Thank you so much, Yunny. Anyone else have a question or anything that they want to ask out loud? You can use the raise your hand feature or drop it in the chat. If you're still formulating questions, no problem. I would say one question that I have would be, what advice do you have for someone who is maybe coming into this space, the engineering space, and they're maybe at the beginning of their journey? It's like, okay, I want to be a developer, I want to be a software engineer, but now there are these tools that feel like they're making it easier, but also making it harder, and there are a bunch of resources. Like, how does a beginner in this industry sort of like focus?
Yes, that's an amazing question, because that question is surprisingly relevant to me as well. Yes, I do have existing way of thinking like a software, but this one is a new paradigm. So I spent some time to figure out what is the good contents that will work for me and work for others. So this might not be the absolute solution, but I do want to recommend this this free resource. So last year fall, Stanford opened up the course. This is the first time ever for them. It's called the Modern Software Developer. Everyone can access. Unfortunately, I don't think they have a video, but they open up all the syllabus and syllabus project learning materials over there. So I was reading through the syllabus, and I think this actually covered the good foundation for the modern engineer that companies are looking for. Again, you guys are not late at all, because the companies are still figuring out what type of abilities and what type of, like skills they need. But I think this one, especially in the Bay Area, where they actually invite the other, kind of unicorn startups people, the founders and engineers to go over the talks that time. I think this can help us to set up the good framework. And after you go through this or just skim through it, if there's a particular area that you are interested in, just start from there. Always remember your interest matters. That's a really good signal, because there's so much information. Everyone can have an access. What we need is the unique passion, unique perspective on certain areas. That's what company wants. So, but in general, this can set up your good landscape. And then maybe along the way, if you like this AI IDE part, if you like this, like some parts of the LLM, just dig in further from there. I will recommend that. Quite honest, this is something that I was also reading through it and then kind of build my mental model around it. And once you have this model, I think it's going to be easier to map whatever new tools come out, where to map it in your head. And then you can kind of make a call like, oh, this is part I'm okay not to learn. This is part I want to learn, kind of thing. So I recommend this resources for you guys all.
That's a great resource. And I see someone drop the link in the chat, which I really appreciate. Thanks so much. We'll send also any links that were shared as well. In terms of, the beginner builder, but also like the intermediate or senior level, what advice can you give to someone who's, I guess, wanting to overhaul their workflow? Like, especially if you're maybe a little bit more advanced in the industry, you've probably been working in a specific way or with a specific mindset for a long time. And I know some developers and some builders are a bit hesitant to involve this technology. So what advice could you give to that kind of group?
That's also another really good question. That has been a huge discussion within Microsoft for sure. By the way, everything I'm sharing, disclaimer, is like not representing Microsoft. It's just my personal opinions. But based on my look, for a year, actually more than a year, there has been a lot of questions from senior engineers who've been here in the industry for a while, whether this will actually work, all the risk and concerns coming up. Right now, the consensus that we all made is that there's definitely substance in this AI. It's true that there is a hype, there's no question around it, but there is some substance, and everyone is trying to find how much is actually valuable or not. and then there's no rule book at all. So after I go through several conversation, and then what worked for me is that, okay, I think at the level that I feel comfortable, I gotta explore and then figure out what works, what doesn't, because there's nobody who can give it to us. So I noticed that all the, even the AI, the most critic AI person in my team, actually, he spends the most time in AI, just to play around with it. Of course, in a sandbox format, so they don't give their personal data. So for example, they create, let's say OpenClaw was the one thing they were experimenting. They didn't feel safe at all to give their data. So what they did, I believe, is that they created the fake Gmail account, not fake, but another Gmail account. And then they subscribe, for example, newsletter only, and then trying to explore that OpenClaw kind of technology. So they are doing it in a cautious way, but for sure, they decided to just dive in and explore to find the limitation and to find the truth about how much this is actually helpful and reduce the noises. So I will highly encourage for you all, especially who have a concerns around AI, we need more of you. So please use the tools and then see what danger is out there and then let the world know. Because otherwise it's so easy to say right now to all the positive things going on, which is true. There's absolute value, but we need more people who can kind of tell us exactly how much is actually useful. And then that one is very subjective. In my unique situation, my how much will be different from you all. And we need more voices because there are at least more people, like I believe there is more Yunny out there who has kind of similar situation with me. So definitely kind of feel like a responsibility in a sense and duty to kind of explore the tool to figure out what is actually good or not and share. So that's how I see the change of the behavior, because our principal engineer actually Plus, he was not using the AI tools for a while. And then he finally decided to give a go last year early on, not because he think AI is that good. It's more like he wanted to know the truth out of the noises. So I will definitely encourage you all to join that attitude.
Amazing. All right. And if you had to start over in your journey, essentially with software engineering, given where we're at now with this technology, what would you do differently if you would do anything differently?
Oh, that's a good question. It might be counterintuitive, but I will really pay attention to my computer science classes. Ironically, at that time, so I graduated a while back. And at that time, computer science was the things that everyone was like, oh, project matters. And nobody actually attended the lectures because they submit the things, the project, and it was good. And it was, at that time, just doing the coding was so hard because I never learned coding until my sophomore year of college, and I didn't understand why I have to do semicolon to make the computer understand things. I was that level. The only thing I knew was browsing internet. So for me, just learning the syntax and actual doing was so hard. So I didn't have the energy to actually understand the fundamentals. But now AI is gonna do doing for you. So I would have pay attention more time to taking there's fundamental classes that teach you how to code. That class is very important, and maybe that might be the only thing that you need in terms of computer science, but it is very important to know how to think like an engineer, because once you have that skill, then you can delegate the actual coding work to AI. But I do tend to see a lot of people kind of just start with it without that understanding and then hitting the roadblock. So I will pay attention to computer science. And also another thing that I wish I did with the AI help is now that means I can be multidisciplinary. Because computer science work was so much for me because it was such a new way of thinking. And then I was like trying to learn at the same time. I couldn't take a lot of other discipline courses like education that I was interested in, or maybe biology. But now I hope that with this AI help, I really hope students have a more energy and bandwidth to explore other courses. Because at the end of the day, this engineering is a tool to the end, the product that you're going to create. We need more humans, more people who knows how to use the skills to solve the real problems. To do that, we need more people, generalists we call in a sense, but just especially in 2 to 3 areas is also good. That's how I would approach differently, because I do see a lot of opportunities are out there. People who know how to do coding, or who know how to do software engineering, but also in different domain. I see a lot of people adding very meaningful value. So those are the two things I would like to share with you all.
Amazing. And I guess my last question is, given the fact like we have a lot of people here who are thinking of or are participating in our 75 Her Challenge, we're in our hackathon phase. They essentially, as of today, have 2 weeks to build, right? What advice would you give to people, both, coders and non-coders who are maybe, leveraging this technology to build these solutions? What advice would you have for them to build something meaningful, impactful, but something that they can be really proud of?
Yeah. Oh my God, so all questions are so good. And first, I would like to really acknowledge and celebrate that anyone who signed up for 75Fest and doing the hackathon, like it may have been easy for you, but as a person who always had a struggle about signing up and showing up for the hackathon, you guys already took the big step to be here and then to creating something. It's not easy. So I'm really proud of you all who's doing it. And it's amazing that I want you to fully know that's a huge step. So I want to congratulate you all for that. But as an advice, again, counterintuitively, as long as you can, the project doesn't have to be fancy. That's the one thing that helped me a lot. I know that there's a lot of good product. I mean, a lot of big problems and good. I do know a lot of good products and ideas come out from the hackathon. But if you can build a tiny tool for yourself that is solving your pain points I want you to fully celebrate that milestone as well. And when you are I would rather you guys scope down the project and understand why you chose to use this tool, why you chose to solve this problem in this specific way. I want you to have that storyline more than just having the big scope project and ship it. Because at the end of the day, when you are like a practical term, let's say you are using this as your part of portfolio, solving the one right problem, if you are resonating, it's also another aspect. That's definitely, if you have one, go for it. Another aspect is showing your thought process to the employer. So for example, this is another data that I would like to share. This is an actual real startup that I was just talking to yesterday, and they do want you to solve the problem, but the only thing they care is that it's not the solution, about how you think. So when you are talking about the technical deep dive, for example, it's an architecture design question, but also they ask you about your project. Yes, impact matters, but I think if you can describe, hey, this was the intention that I had, and then with this AI 75, this specific unique opportunity, with this specific time I have. So basically you are articulating the constraints you have in your life. And then this is why I exactly scoped down this much, and I decided to choose this tool to solve this problem. Like that kind of clear story is going to be very valuable as well. So at a hackathon project, I want you to choose something that you deeply want to understand over like a shiny, fancy project or fancy tool usage, for example. Because the fact that you are doing it is already a huge win. I think now the challenge is going to be like what story you want to tell, you want to share with the people out there, and then so the opportunity can find you. So I want you to kind of consider that angle as well.
That's really, really great advice. And I really do hope, I saw someone ask about the link for signing up for the hackathon. So I really do hope, if you're not signed up, highly recommend signing up. We do a couple of things a little bit differently at Create Her Fest versus other hackathons that you may have seen or maybe participated in terms of making sure that the things that you are submitting are directly going to help you in terms of like interviewing. So we do ask you to provide documentation about like, okay, what's your problem statement? Who is your user? What problem do they face? What's the solution overview? What does your prototype do? What's your success test? Like if you incorporated mentor feedback, how did you do that? How did you pivot? And so we go out of our way to make sure that we're touching on those things. So this is a really good way to get, I would say, a low risk way of practicing how to talk about these kind of solutions and how to talk about the way that you're going about creating your solution. So if you haven't signed up, highly recommend signing up. If you are signed up, congrats, you're doing amazing, and I'm super proud of you already. All right, if there are any other questions, like, I mean, we're wrapping up. I did post the link to our feedback survey, and I'll post it again really quickly just to let myself, but also let Yunny know just how we did today, if you found this helpful, if you really like this format, if you were able to get your questions answered. So please let us know how we did today, and we'd love to be able to share that with Yunny. And like I said, if you aren't signed up for 75 Her yet, please sign up. I will say the last thing is, I think it would be really awesome, is given the fact that we've gathered here today on this Sunday, it's been really cool, just a really interesting and impactful moment, just being able to gather here and ask these questions to someone who is so deeply embedded in this technology, but also in this industry, and also as a woman in tech. Like, this is an amazing moment right here. Would love to be able to do, I would say, a group photo, like, no worries, there's no pressure to come off camera if you're not feeling it, but if you can, it would be really, really amazing to be able to do a group photo. Would just make our days if we were able to kind of just solidify this moment in technology, amongst women in technology. So if you can, and I'm going to make sure we're in grid mode here. Awesome. And I think you got to, I think you need to, yeah, exactly. There we go. And I'll unpin so we're able to see as many of us as we can. Love to see it. Thanks so much for everyone who is exactly. If you're able to put cameras on, that would be great. Get your avatar ready. If you want to, show up in the metaverse, that's okay too. Love to see it. Excellent. Okay, so okay, we get more cameras. Yes. All of it. Okay, I'm gonna take a couple of shots as well. Excellent. Okay, so I'm gonna say 1, 2. Okay, we'll get a couple of shots. So if you're still getting right, you have to take off your bonnet. That's cool. I'm gonna take a couple of shots, a couple of screenshots. I'm gonna say 1, 2, 3, and then listen. This is a safe space. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, I'm gonna take another one. Ready? All 1, 2, 3. Excellent. I appreciate it. Thank you all so much for attending. I'll take another one too. I see some more people coming off, whatever, but because I see some people coming in a little late. Take it 1, 2, 3. Excellent. Thank you all so much. And, fill out the feedback survey if you can. Definitely let us know. And we hope to do more of these office hours. I think this has been really beneficial. I hope it's been beneficial for you all as well, to be able to ask these questions and feel like this is a safe space to kind of wonder about these things. And, like Yunny said, it's not too late to use this technology to become more subject matter experts, regardless of what role that you're in. If you're more on the developer side, designer side, project management, you can, use these tools and feel like, you have a really good handle on it, but don't build in a silo. This is a community. And so we want you to feel supported in this space. But as usual, if you have any questions, if you want more community, definitely join us in our Discord as well. We stay in there, just having conversations. If you just need somebody, to kind of be there while you're, working as well. And we'll also host office hours in terms of just co-working and team building if you are looking for a team. So if you want to hang back after this call and see if you want to connect with anyone who's looking for a team, we'll hang back for a couple of minutes as well. But we'll also host that more of a team matching situation again on Tuesday and Thursday. All right, I'll stop recording, but thank you all so much. And for anyone hanging around to meet anyone for a team, I'll see you in a second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.